Hi, my name is Kris. On this channel we talk about Deltarune, and in this video we're going to be handling a hot potato because we're going to be tackling the subject of friend. Is friend a fraud? No. Who is the architect of Cyber City? Between my other videos and the end of this video, I hope to convince you that there can only be one possible architect for Cyber City, so stay tuned for that. We have a lot to discuss, but first, let us begin with Toby Fox. This is Toby Fox, and the Dapper Hat shows that clearly Toby Fox is Team Bluke Knight, and you can be Team Bluke Knight as well. Subscribe. That's like literally all you have to do. All you do is subscribe, and now you're Team Bluke Knight. All right, between the newsletter and the pink patch, it's pretty clear that Toby thinks that we're not getting friend right, and it kind of bothers him. As much as I've ever seen things actually bother Toby, right? I guess the Thorn Ring thing from Chapter 4, the whole Weird Route sequence, that reaction clearly bothered Toby enough that went back in, rewrote that whole sequence. But we came back in and we added an entire dialogue sequence for Pink that, as I defined in another video, was the closest we've ever seen Toby do Netflix-style writing, where he's taking us through every single plot beat of Friend through the voice of Pink here. So we need to discuss what the evidence around Friend points to, because as Toby said in the newsletter, go and check out my readings on that, there is evidence that Toby probably expected us to unpack differently. We've got a lot of it here if we want to unpack it. So let's go ahead and take another look at Cyber City in this video and talk about Friend. Cards on the table, let's get into the summary. There is a friend in Hometown coming out at night. The friend needs the dark to operate. The friend is following Kris, and Kris has been going to the Dark Worlds since before Chapter 1. We know this based off of the save file that we overwrite. The friend follows Kris to almost every Dark World that they go to. So supposing that they've been to more than one Dark World since the summoning ceremony, like more than one, this pursuit has been going on. However, the origin of friends is not around the Dark World per se, though there are friends in the Dark World. The origin of the friend chasing Kris connects back to Catti, the notably Pink outlier of the Kattenheimer family. We're going to talk about the Kattenheimer family and their relationship to the Holiday family in this video as well. Stay tuned. Some interesting stuff about the financial relationship between the Kattenheimers and the Holidays that I've uncovered during the making of this video. Next, we are going to talk about Kris being interested in summoning a demon. This one's not going to be a big shocker, not super long. Catti did a demon summoning ceremony with Kris some time ago, after the disappearance, but before the events of the game, and definitely some time ago. And Catti still regrets the outcome of that summoning ceremony deeply. Kris resents Catti very deeply to this day for the outcome of that summoning ceremony, which I think, based off of the fact that Kris is not exactly the most emotional human being we've ever met in our lives, very Varric-like in their nature, the fact that Kris's resent is palpable and known by others tells us that this event was a rather severe event. Then we are going to talk about where does Cyber City fit into this. Cyber City is an analog to Hometown, and actually has done quite a good deal of foreshadowing of the events of future chapters, and we can now heat check that since we are at Chapter 5 and we were talking about Chapter 2. Now we've seen the festival, we can see how much the festival really does parallel Cyber City. So we'll take a little circle back to Cyber City, but specifically what I want to focus in on is Cyber City, like Hometown, appears shiny on the surface, just like the festival appears shiny on the surface, but underneath there's something else going on. And I would suggest with Cyber City it is the thematics of fear. I would suggest with Hometown The citizens of Hometown are kind of strange now that we've gotten to know them for 5 chapters, and obviously what happened to our boy Onion-san. Still, we need justice for Onion-san. But let us move on. I don't know if Onion-san's a boy. You know what I mean by our boy. Anyways, move on. Cyber City's authorship definitively by a Holiday. We'll break that down because we need to talk about what the purpose of Cyber City is all about. And then last, certainly not least, Carol knows all about this friend in Hometown because she's got such a heavy oversight about all of the going-ons in Hometown, and Carol has unparalleled access to all of the places and information in Hometown and is using it as leverage on Kris. Carol can control where we go. Do we go out of Hometown? Not so long as there's that police tape. Can we go into the shelter? Not so long as we have a code. Is there an easy way across the lake? Not so far as she sees it. Can you even get into her house? Not unless she wants you to. So we need to talk about Carol and her barricades and her total informational awareness one more time. But first, let us begin with talking about Friend, because they are with us in the dark, and seemingly only in the dark. Let's take a look at these screenshots. So here we have an escalatory pattern as we make our way through Friend. First, we just seemingly run into Friend, right? It's chapter 2. We're underground. Spampton wanted us to go underground. Not entirely sure why. While we're down there, we run into this Friend, but they're out of bounds. We can't really interact with them. Nothing to worry about. Okay. Now, we start playing the Mantle minigame. Now the Friend is inbounds, but like in a layer behind us, so we can't really interact with the Friend like that. Then we get to the Mike minigames. Now the Friends are a part of the Mike minigames, but that's like a game within a game within a game, you know, and like they're just like items. Not that big of a deal. Then we get to the ERAM fight. Now, all of a sudden, ERAM is spawning these Friends left and right at us. But I want you to notice the common theme so far. Dark, dark, dark. The ERAM fight. Right before you might go, oh, blue background. Gotcha, Kris. Right before, ERAM asks, can you see in the dark? So these are obviously Friends. And there's this dark-related comment about it. And we're going to talk more about can you see in the dark and all of a sudden seeing Friends. Then, chapter 4, it escalates. Now, Friend is following us in the hallways. Friend is now on the other side of the wall. We can't encounter them, but they are in pursuit. It is no like Mare or ERAM already in pursuit. We have the hallway in pursuit, escalating all the way to chapter 5 when Friend attacks and has a vicious bite. We now know that Friend is a real issue, to borrow some of the language from the game. However, I think it's really notable. The Friend has a real aversion to any amount of light, even in the dark world, right? When we run in to Friend basically needs sunset and then this one little area in the shadows to do their thing. They can't come out during the day. We're able to more or less cruise around the Flower Kingdom and everything's totally cool until we run into this one scene in night. So once we hit the night, now it's a problem. This brings up my theory as to why did Spampton survive the attacks? Because Spampton, though a scrawny little guy who is, let's be real here, pretty weak before the Spampton fight. I mean, now we see how Friend attacks. Think about how Spampton fights. Spampton versus Friend, no contest. Spampton's not able to fight Friend. I don't care what equipment Spampton puts on, right? The kind of the point with Spampton's equipment is no amount of equipment was ever going to prepare Spampton for a fight against Friend. Friend was way too powerful for Spampton. I think what kept Spampton safe was the fact that the dumpster was in the light. So, yeah, the Friend can come out, I guess, in the dark at night in Cyber City, but Cyber City's pretty well lit. It is a very bright place. I think it is the brightness of Cyber City that protected Spampton, not the disguises or the other things. I think it's the darkness that is Friend's big weakness, or it's one point where it can't operate. These are my thoughts. I almost included Jackenstein because, right, like Jackenstein takes off the hat and then there's a cat in there. That felt a little tenuous to me, but Jackenstein really hangs out in the dark, and I think there's even some like catty references in Jackenstein's fight. I didn't go down that path. I would certainly encourage anyone who's interested in commenting. Oh, hey, look, friends, anyone who's interested in commenting, please go ahead and do so. All right. Next, we need to talk about the summoning ceremony with Catti. All right. So, the Cattheimers are associated not just with, like, cats loosely. It's literally all things cats. They hoard all things cats. But they are connected back to the video game world, the digital world of cats for certain. So, there is a game console. It has one normal controller and one knockoff one. This knockoff one, I believe, is a reference to Mad Catz controllers from the 1990s. The one for the N64 felt like you were holding a Klingon battleship in your hand. Actually, honestly, not unlike holding a Millennium Falcon in your hand. That's basically what the N64 variant of it felt like. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. And if you wanted to put your friend at a marked disadvantage, you just give them the Mad Catz controller. They're never beating you in anything. Those buttons are so slow. And then we see Catti and Kris, seen faintly in this. And we know a lot about Catti with an I. I think it's been under-discussed where Catti with a Y fits into this puzzle, because she keeps bubbling up, and it's relevant. For example, she's the one in Queen's Mansion. We're going to find out why here in just a second. Then we go to an excerpt from some of the kids around town. This just evidences how well known the incident involving the demon summoning ceremony was, even among the kids. It was the subject of rumors. And obviously, Chris's rage towards Catti was palpable enough that everyone was commenting on it. You know, when you and Catti were kids, didn't you try to summon a demon? I'm surprised they even let you in here. And then later on, we see in Cyber City, you unconsciously clicked a pop-up about a demon summoning class for teens. The pop-ups crashed. We have another one here from Catti, and this is in Chapter 5, where we really get the full-on kind of pointed lore dump about this. Is this revenge for all the way back then? I told you, I already cast the apology spells. I admit I was weak. The fear took me. I left you to complete the summoning alone. Do you really still curse me for that? So we get evidence that, between all these quotes, Kris was interested in summoning a demon, searched how to online. Friend seems particularly interested in Kris. We'll find Kris in isolated moments. We got that from the pictures. The summoning ceremony was done with Catti. Kris was left alone. Friend is particularly locked in on Kris, tends to find Kris in isolated moments. How many of those moments? The fun gang gets attacked, right? But the early ones are all Kris encountering Friend in an isolated setting, including the ERAM fight. This is a very Kris-centric experience. And then apparently that summoning ceremony was bad enough that kids around town know about and still chatter about it, and Kris resents Catti for it still, because Catti's still guilt-tripping over it, and Kris is not doing anything to assuage that guilt. So the resentment continues during the course of the game. Now, we need to talk about Alphys and cats. Alphys's relationship with Friend is very interesting, to borrow the Gaster parlance here. Let's start off with the Teens Corner reading. This reviewer had Mew Mew 2 as her first exposure to the series, and let me tell you, it Let me try that again. This reviewer had Mew Mew 2 as her first exposure to the series, and let her tell you, it makes Mew Mew 1 look like a dumpster with sparkly cat ears. With a darker storyline and more mature themes, the second one treats the viewer as a real adult, instead of like an animal that will die if it goes 10 seconds without seeing a beach ball. Not to mention, Mew Mew's character in the first one is more stale than the ramen I eat at home by myself with the lights off. Teens and older should check out this dark masterpiece. Signed, the anonymous yellow lizard. Let's break down Alphys in this teens corner here, now that we have 5 chapters to work with, because we have quite a lot to work with here. So, Mew Mew 1 looks like a dumpster with sparkly cat ears. Here, we are invoking both Spampton and Mew Mew. Then we talk about the darker storyline. And the second one treats the viewer like a real adult. This is very reminiscent of Ram, who says that the game is going to treat you like a real adult, or something to that effect, right? You want the real game, Kris. Alphys is out here in hometown, not unlike Ram, promising the real one. So we have connections to 3 of the secret bosses, right? We have connections to Spampton, we have connections to Pink, and we have connections to Ram, who is obviously connected in some way, shape, or form to ERAM. It obviously knows about the Mantle minigame on some level. And then, last, and I think this is as important as anything, more stale than the ramen I eat at home by myself with the lights off. What do we know about Alphys off of this? Alphys spends a non-negligible amount of time by herself in the dark. Where is friend popping up for Kris? When Kris is by themselves in the dark. So, and then even this whole thing about dark masterpiece, right? Darker storylines. We think about darker, and we've even talked about this in other videos, as a way of unpacking Undertale being, or Deltarune being more dark than Undertale, like that. What if the dark's also still kicking back to friend as well? What if all of this stuff is friend thematics being set up? Here's a cat with an angel background on it. No particular reason. Here's friend. Cats with angels on it. Now here's another Alphys quote. Oh, this saucer of milk? It's for my kitty, Mew Mew. She's a perfect angel. What does she look like? Well, I've never actually seen her, but ever since I started putting out milk, it's been disappearing. So I'd like to think that there's a cat. My cat. Kris, even though you never got the chalk, you deserve an award for trying so hard to find it. So, in return, I can let you borrow my homemade DVD collection of The Symptoms. You know, the sitcom about the middle-class monster family. It's got every episode in all 20 seasons. It's the funniest, most quotable show ever. But make sure you don't watch past the 2nd season. Once again, we're calling back to the 2nd season line from the Teen Zone quote here. I want to just count dark real quick in this. How many occurrences of dark do we have? We got the dumpster. We got darker. We got an animal that will die going 10 seconds without seeing a beach ball. What does that tie back to? Can anyone help me out with that one? I don't know. We got a couple of references of dark in just that quote alone here. Dark and darker. Last, we have Alphys further connecting herself to the dumpster, which further connects Alphys to Spampton. And Spampton, where did Spampton get attacked? At the dumpster by a friend. And if Cyber City is an analog to Hometown, Alphys is hanging out by the dumpsters, Spampton is hanging out by the dumpsters, and what does Spampton run into? What is Alphys running into? If you ever need help with homework, my office hours are in this disgusting alley. Office hours are after school, so this would be at night, at dark. Tell your mom that I said hi. Last, speaking of things in the dark, we have something merciless attacking the dog burglars. We were attacked in the shadows by something merciless. Now, at one point, I kind of thought this was Carol, but now as I'm putting this all together and I'm thinking about the thematics, especially when we get to the pink quote and the people she mentions who are trying to get away from friends, I don't think so anymore. Because if we think about the forgotten man, one of the key elements with finding the forgotten man, or when we run into the forgotten man, is the annoying dog is there. And what I think is interesting about Toby with thematics, I've mentioned in discussing comments with all of y'all, is that Toby very often likes to balance out a good character by making them annoying. And typically, a not good character is kind of likable on some level. For, Queen, for example, all of her dialogue's very funny. She's not good, but she's very funny, and she keeps you laughing all throughout. Whereas someone like Birdley, who is objectively good, is very annoying. We have the annoying dog, and we have these cats, which I'm going to start making this symbolism for very clear here. The thematics around this are chaos. Cats are chaotic. So we have the annoying dogs, which are good. They represent good. And they're kind of protecting the forgotten man. I think we get this most notably in that final forgotten man sequence where there are no more eggs to be had anymore. And it does seem like that makes sense of why are the friends, or what are the friends after with the forgotten man? They're after his eggs. Now we've got all of these eggs. I think that's going to be a situation for us. We've taken all the eggs from the forgotten man. We got the protein. That's going to be a problem. But these friends, we've now kind of established, they don't like dogs. And it makes sense that they would attack the dog burglars who were hanging out in the shadows as they were thinking about breaking in to the mansion of the Holidays. But what does this mean? It's night and they're hanging out in the shadows. So it's dark at night. But if you're hanging out in the shadows at night, it's even darker than dark. Now you've put yourself, forgive me, into the friend zone. I'm sorry. I denounce and reject myself immediately for that joke. Next, we have this comment from Pink during her fight. Why do you even need a dog radar? This further suggests cats and dogs not getting along. If you need a radar, it's because you're worried about incoming enemies, right? Like normally you have radars for incoming enemies. That's why you establish a radar. You don't have a radar for friends. You have a radar for enemies. That's why you need a dog radar. Now let's go into Pink's actual dialogue that Toby took the time to add in and unpack this. Kris, is your hand okay? It looks like you've got a cat bite, Mew. Cats can be nasty creatures, can't they, Mew? I once met someone who really likes cats, Mew. They liked cats so much that they owned a whole hunting pack of them, Mew. Of course, cats are fickle creatures, but they were very good at finding protein. Kris, if you have any protein, you must keep it hidden and never let anyone see it. The cats are not too smart, but once they find a target, they will never stop chasing it until they get bored. And when they find you, they will bite very, very hard. Some people would do anything to get away from them, even change their appearance or go into hiding. Oh, Kris, it's terrible, Mew. It's terrible. Please be careful, Kris. Promise? All right. People who change their appearance, Spampton. Spampton would be a good example of a person who has changed their appearance. There might be other candidates of this, but it's pretty clear Spampton did that. I think this is important. The way Pink says it, neither of these strategies are winning strategies, which is why I go back to Spampton didn't survive because of the glasses. Spampton survived because Spampton doesn't hang out fully in the shadows. Spampton hangs out in an alleyway. It's not entirely dark there. And Spampton, basically as long as Spampton was able to go around in the light, was fine. It's just the more Spampton hung out in the shadows, the more in danger Spampton was. Hiding out, running away. This is the Forgotten Man. The Forgotten Man has gone into hiding from these friends. I do not know why. I think it goes back to the protein. It goes back to the eggs. Why the cat needs the eggs. I mean, this kind of makes sense in the sense of, like, cats would eat a chicken, like, on a farm or in a barn or whatever. Like, you do have to be worried about having... Out here, we actually do have people who try to keep chickens, and, like, raccoons and cats can break into your chicken coop and eat your chicken and eat your eggs. So that is a thing cats would be interested in doing. So I kind of see even where this stuff is coming from. Now, we need to get to the second part of the video here, which is Cyber City as Noelle's tutorial. If Chapter 1 was a tutorial for Kris, where Ralsei is giving Kris a tutorial, Cyber City is actually designed to be Noelle's tutorial, an analog particularly to Festival Era Hometown, and a program designed to help her conquer fears. Cyber City, like Hometown, appears very shiny and bright on the surface, but underneath, physically underneath, not just metaphorically underneath, it is a place of fears. And we need to discuss what those fears are and who those fears are designed for and designed to address, because they will speak to the authorship of Cyber City. I want to note as I begin here, this is not meant to be a comprehensive treatise on Cyber City. I've talked about it before. Cyber City is important, though, for those of you who've seen my other videos on this, for establishing a thematic that I want to carry on here. And that thematic is new and will actually help us to rule out all but one of the candidates for the architect of Cyber City. So let's talk about 3 items of fear for Noelle that Cyber City is designed to address. Mice. First, we got Kris. You aren't going to leave me here, are you? I think about all the pencils I gave you. The peppermint cookies I shared with you. I'll do your homework for you. Kris, are you afraid of mice too? That one's real important because we now know at the beginning of this chapter, Noelle is scared of mice. And I believe there's even more dialogue before this. I really just needed one piece of dialogue to establish this. But I like this piece of dialogue in particular for where I'm going, because Noelle is asking Kris, why are you scared? And sensing that Kris has fears as well. Perhaps there are some fears in Cyber City that Cyber City is designed to speak directly to. Foreshadowing. All right, next we have this. After Cyber City, or actually midway through Cyber City here, we have an entire plot beat dedicated to this, where Noelle says, you know, I don't think I'm afraid of mice anymore. Actually, I think they might be kind of cute. Anyways, let's keep going. And then we get a parenthetical. Noelle is now immune to mice, which reads like a joke, but like all things Tricky Tony, is a layered thing. And we really need to think about, why is this being included like this? Well, this was one of the goals and objective in the game that could be achieved in Cyber City. Noelle, it is intended that she stops being scared of mice. The architect of Cyber City very much wants to see Noelle conquer fears. What other fears? Mice is kind of a weird, esoteric, and weirdly specific one, so it pretty much only connects back to the family. But let's consider mice just for a couple more moments here. Noelle has that state of fear of mice. Many of the enemies in Cyber City are mice. But add on top of that, the butlers in Queen's Mansion who are scared of the mice, just like Noelle. After our trip to Cyber City, though, Noelle is no longer scared of the mice, right? We go to the diner, and we actually learn so many important things here in this one little exchange with Catti with a Y. Because it answers, why does Catti with a Y have a room in Cyber City and not Catti with an I? Isn't that an interesting one? Well, Turns out Catti with a Y is financially linked to the Holiday family. Kris, remember me? Sorry if I was too strict when I babysat you and Noelle. Since then, Noelle always seems so nervous around me. Until today. She even complimented my outfit. Wonder what changed. And she was muttering something like, mice are cute. Now, if you do the weird route, we get, and she was muttering something like, you don't scare me. This is very interesting. Circle back to that in a second. We got two other points of fear here that Cyber City is designed to address. And there's a right way to address your fears, and there's a wrong way to address your fears for those of you playing at home. Next, we have her mother and just authority figures in general, strict authority figures in general. This is all done through Queen. So if you want to read Queen as sort of an extension of Catti, yeah, I guess. Obviously see her as a mishmash of Carol and Rudy put together. Looks like Carol, moves around like Carol, has the same job as Carol, is domineering and protective like Carol, but talks like Rudy, has all of the fighting thematics and the punch-out, rumble sort of stuff. I'm going to kick your ass, that kind of thing. Very Rudy-coded stuff there. And obviously a lot of Cyber City is extraordinarily Rudy-coded. I don't want to do a full rundown of that. I've done a bigger video on that as well here. But these are all of the figures of authority that Queen is sort of designed to speak to. Because yes, even to a certain extent, Rudy is a figure of authority. Keep that in the back pocket as we take a look at a little exchange here in just a moment as well. Last, and certainly not least, Birdly and the Spelling Bee. On the previous video that kind of blew up, we had a great exchange all about the Spelling Bee. I want to thank the original poster for the comment. That launched off a big discourse and actually really helped me kind of crystallize my thoughts about why the Spelling Bee was so important. This is yet another moment where Noelle locks up in fear. And I think we've actually had that kind of characterization around her freezing up around mice, around her mother. And then at the Spelling Bee, as we found out during Chapter 2, she got paralyzed by fear over the loss of Des. And I think this also gets into how did we cope with December? We need to talk about that in a second. We have this Birdly December moment. Let's go back to the Spelling Bee because I want to flesh out the picture for some of you who don't think the Spelling Bee could be a traumatic moment like this. I do want to mention she's heavily traumatized by mice, so I'm not really swimming upstream all that hard right now as we talk about the town Spelling Bee. So Noelle is very likely an elementary school age child after the disappearance, like 4th grade, maybe 5th grade. That's kind of where I have this Spelling Bee landing, because Birdly talks about it with enough distance that this was a few years ago and is now kind of set Birdly's fate in stone, so it couldn't have been last year, right? This had to have been a minute ago. This Spelling Bee, for these two young kids, would have been in front of an audience of all of the parents, including Carol and Rudy, sitting in the audience, cheering on their little girl, wanting her to win the Spelling Bee, and kind of probably carrying a little bit of a chip on their shoulder that Noelle's going to win this Spelling Bee, because they do sort of view themselves as essential to the town. You know, she's the super mayor who can do anything, laws be damned, and Rudy's so important, we got to hang the lights every year. Festival ain't the festival without the Rudy Holiday experience, right? How could this town carry on? So they're sitting in the audience. Meanwhile, this moderator, who is this moderator? Boy, I want to know who this moderator is. I loved the guess of Gerson. Meanwhile, this moderator gets the wild idea, knowing full well that talking about the disappearance is kind of taboo, even as Gore knows better than to speak about it directly. Think about that. He's investigating it. He sort of knows that you know about it, and even then he still doesn't want to talk about it. Whoever this moderator was, whoever was running the Spelling Bee, throw that to the side. Your final word's December. Now all of a sudden, Rudolph Holiday, proud dad. What good is a father if he can't protect his daughter? Here's December, like Rosebud hitting Citizen Kane, with the compounded interest of watching your current daughter losing on stage in front of the entirety of the town as a major taboo has been broken. I do think that this has the ability, especially for that little girl on stage, to weigh very heavily. And Rudy doesn't take things lightly like that, especially not when it comes to his daughter. See his reaction to the angel doll. So, yes, I absolutely believe that Rudy would have Birdley and the Birdley incident on his mind all the time. Not that he needs to, strangle this little bluebird, right? But the fact that this obviously had a traumatic effect on Noelle, his daughter, and he kind of got to know that his wife's having a trauma reaction to the loss of December as well, and he's watching everyone kind of fail, and his health is now failing as well. Well, computer program gives us a chance to actually have a little adventure with Birdley, and for Noelle to realize, sure, she lost, but that's because she lost her confidence. She could have won this. Birdley doesn't think that he's smarter than her. If anything, Birdley finally opens up and goes, no, I know that you're smarter than me. I didn't know why that happened, and now my life has not been so great ever since I become the smart kid in school here, and sort of took that away from the holidays. They're shining star on top of the Christmas tree at school, right? Birdley's not loving life. That helps Noelle cope with it, and that gives her closure on that experience. It was a tough L, but actually an important part of childhood is having a tough L like that and learning from it and growing from it and realizing that that loss is so not the end of the world and that you can fail at one thing. And the most important thing is to pick yourself up and try a new thing. I'll expand on that more at another point here. But let me just tell you that is an important lesson. I'm living it right now. And thank you all for helping me do so. So anyways, these two last items that I just broke down here, Queen and Birdley and the spelling bee, these require, by definition, post-disappearance knowledge. This is a real problem for Des architect theory, isn't it? How would Des know that her mom is having these really nasty trauma responses to Noelle? And if she knows about them, what is the point of letting them go on and on for now literally years? If you're traveling to the light world and you can see that your sister who you love is suffering under your mom who is going through her trauma response, thinking that you're completely gone, but you're not completely gone, but you're going to let this dynamic just go on. Doesn't make a ton of sense. Ditto with Birdley and the spelling bee. Is the architect hanging out in the audience of the spelling bee? It's kind of hard to imagine that they wouldn't be, but it's really hard to imagine, again, that Des, who is seemingly trapped in the code, even if Des can break herself off from that portion of the code, how's Des getting all the way to the spelling bee? And then we get into Azrael as the potential architect. Could Azrael be at the spelling bee? Absolutely. Does Azrael know Queen? Carol? Absolutely, right? Yeah, dating his daughter, or dating her daughter, yeah, absolutely. Why would Azrael care about helping Noelle get over her fear of mice, though? I can't really come up with anything in the text, even in parallel texts, that really suggests Azrael would care about Noelle's specific fears over mice like that. It just doesn't quite wash. So, with all of that said, we've got some real problems with those two as candidates for the programmers. Next, I just want to mention that there's other evidence for Rudy as the architect beyond this. It's that Cyber City is littered with Rudy references. We have one of my favorite NPCs. I love the city man, and he says that he gets his he says this after he gets his ass kicked literally by the cars that have feet so that they can kick ass, and they do kick us. And the ruler of the city doesn't talk, or talks like Rudy, and also kind of talks like Carol, complete with the trash talking and the kick-ass thematics. And, going back to the Carol parallels real quick, just adding one last element of this, the Queen fight is all centered around barricades, right? Queen sets up a giant barrier around herself. And what has Carol been doing? She's been setting up barriers all over town, throttling where we can go. Really, what is our point of attack? We can't go out of hometown because she's making sure the police are constantly reapplying police tape, and obviously she's controlling the police department. That's why she keeps changing everybody out. So she knows what they're doing. She has a gate around her own house. Her daughter can't even come in or go out. Setting a barricade around there. And then obviously, last and certainly not least, the shelter is yet another form of Carol's barricades. She's got like a delta of barricades going on here. With all of this in consideration now, with the notion that Rudy is the architect of Cyber City, I want to consider Rudy's reaction when you come back from the weird route, because I think it starts to make a lot of sense. When Noelle comes back from Cyber City, having done what she calls the evil route that her parents didn't know about, Rudy knows immediately something went wrong in this little moral learning simulator for her, because she's learned the wrong lessons, and now she's trying the wrong things in Dragon Blazers just to see what happens, rather than being more confident using the right spells, but maybe just not having so many potions, right? If you want to go back to the Dragon Blazer setup, she's got the 99 potions, and we're just kind of like, all right, I mean, I know you're scared about getting hit, but you don't necessarily need to carry 99 potions with you at all times. The 99 potions is symbolism for Noelle's fear. When she comes back after the weird route, see, she learned all those fear lessons wrong, didn't she? She was supposed to realize that mice aren't so bad. What did she learn? You can murk mice if you want to. She was supposed to learn to not be scared of Queen and learn how to assert herself. Instead, she learns how to be dominating, just like Queen. And then we get to Birdley. Birdley's a good guy, y'all. And her answer is not to conquer the fear of the loss and come to terms with taking the L and everything like that. It is to freeze Birdley and put Birdley in the hospital right alongside Rudy. So she gets back and she goes, maybe we could try Ice Shock? And Rudy's like, ice on the Ice Palace, boss. Don't you want to try Fire Shock or something? You're supposed to learn a lesson here, Noelle. You didn't learn the lesson. You're doing weird stuff. Why would you do that? That wasn't the lesson I was trying to teach you. You want to be problem-solving oriented. You're supposed to kind of figure out your way through this and figure out how to resolve the problems, kind of using countervailing energy. So if you're going up against an ice boss, you use fire. Why are you going to hit Ice Shock on the Ice Palace boss? And the only answer is because that's what she's been doing in the learning simulator. Rudy then goes, here, how about letting me control for a bit? No, I'll control it myself. Noelle has become dominating. It's not assertive. It's not even, Dad, I think I've got this boss this time. Let me handle the controllers here. It's literally pushing Rudy too hard. And Rudy jokes about it. Not like you to be a controller hog, honey. Are you feeling all right? He's already on to something has gone wrong in the learning simulator. She learned the wrong responses to fear. One response to fear is a healthy response to fear. Another response to fear is to become so strong nothing ever hurts you ever again. And I'm not going to break down real world examples because they're going to be poignant, and let's not get into that. But yeah, there are those people who have those fears, and their answer is they're never going to be weak again. You're never going to make me weak again. I can't be scared of you if I'm more powerful than you, right? But the healthy response is mice. I actually, quick one, benign one. I used to be scared of bees, which is weird. I'm a gardener, right? This summer, I am watering the Videx tree, or the Vidix tree. I always forget how you say it. And I'm doing it midday like a dopus. And all of the bees, the pollinating honeybees, love them, are doing their thing. And I spray them because I'm a dummy. And all of a sudden, they're not happy with old Kris. And they show up, and one of them lands like middle of my forehead. This is like May, and bam, right there. I walk in. My wife's like, "What happened to you?" And I was like, "I got stung by a bee." And then I was standing there, I was going, "It's not so bad." I put some rubbing alcohol on it. It hurt. I pulled out the sticker, got it all out, and I wasn't scared of bees anymore, right? The way I used to handle was I'd kind of run. Not proud, just telling you my truth. And I'm telling you, yeah, like, you can get over your fears, right? Mice, okay, yeah, but you don't have to be scared of them. Roaches, not great, but you don't have to be scared of them, right? You don't have to feel like I need to wipe out every roach on the entire block, or I need to kill all mice on the entire block. No mice will ever touch me again, right? And that's kind of what Rudy is now worried about, is you have taken, Noelle, my daughter, you've taken this route of power, not a healthy relationship with fear, and learning to assert yourself. Mice aren't so bad. Birdley's just a guy. Mom needs to be stood up a little bit. Part of becoming an adult is learning how to assert yourself to your parents. You don't have to, like, you can put an arm's length at them without, like, hating them to death. In certain circumstances, I'm not trying to tell everyone their lives, but, like, this is what Rudy is trying to teach. But I want to talk now about Cyber City also being a place for Kris's fear, because this is where it gets much more interesting to me. We have Task and we have Task Manager. Let's start by talking about Task. Task wags its tail in a sine wave. It's interesting because in that game where the Mike mini game, where we run into friends, right? We are playing, and it's like we have sinusoidal waves. Those are actually sine waves that are going on there. For those of you who like to use your pedals, your guitar pedals at home here. That's how I know a good old sine wave. So that's actually a reference back to that Mike mini game. Smells like a plastic cartridge. Cat petters. Task. This stray cat is in need of some management. You pet Task. I like that. You pet Task. It's just a cat. Susie roared. The enemy became tired. Who's the king of the jungle now? I don't know why I read those. Those are just good ones. This is the important one. You and Noelle pet the enemies. There. It's not too different from Catti. So, once again, we get into this idea of Kris and Noelle both kind of scared of cats, but Noelle more or less is over this pretty quick. Like she's not really scared of cats like that. What she's scared of is Catti with a Y, who was a strict babysitter, and so Noelle had that reaction to Catti of like, no, you stay away from me. On the weird route here, you don't scare me, because now nothing scares me. You don't scare me is a threat, right? Being, having a good relationship with your fears, mice are cute. That is the dichotomy going on there. Let's talk about friend in the internet. This is interesting. I think this gets us back to friend coming from the digital world. This is from one of the butlers in Queen's Mansion. Recently, something called internet is having an outage. Some say it was the secret to Queen's know-how. Since then, it seems like she's become quite extreme. I'm really only interested in cute digital cats. I don't think the internet has anything to do with that. I like cats the best, but I heard Pop-Up is cute too. What? It's considered a household pest? No way. We have this correlation between digital cats and the internet outage, and it's negated in such a way that you have to raise an eyebrow, right? Do the cats have something to do with the internet outage? Perhaps so. Perhaps so. Perhaps not, But it is entirely possible, I guess, the cats could have chewed through the Cat 5 cable. I'm sorry, I'll stop. Noelle is with you now. You are filled with the power from the cat sign. The cat sign's so important that it, like the mice, gets its own plot beat. You're mostly filled with the power from fluffy boys and mean girls. The cat sign still comprises about 1% of it. You have neither fluffy boys nor mean girls with you now. Reluctantly, you are filled with the power of the cat sign. When you're all alone, the cat sign fills you with its power, just like the friend likes to appear in the dark when you are all alone at first here. Going back to this Catty's room. Why Catti? Because she worked for Carol. She worked for the holidays. Jockington, Catti and Jockington. I don't know. Maybe Rudy just likes Jockington. Right? No one really knows where Jockington fully fits into this puzzle, right? And then Asriel's room. I mean, we could think that Catty's a typo, and I'm willing to vibe with you on that, just in the sense of it's wallpapered with the cat ad from the city. It's animated too. And the cat ad might be the demon summoning ad that Kris, clicked on. And that's what we're seeing. Here is the cat in Cyber City. If the cat's this prevalent all over Cyber City, is it the case that the friend is hanging out in hometown in Analogy? You see the eyes here? We've got the friend style eyes going on here. The friend color theming. Now, where does Carol fit into this? Carol does know something about these tasks, because Carol is the task manager. Here's Carol, arm on Kris, making sure that Kris stays on task, just in case you weren't sure about the analogy here. Here is the task manager. Note that the task manager basically has like a Rudy, she's got like the Rudy Flame thing that I've talked about, but it's like Carol's hair, essentially. And though task manager doesn't have the arms like that, what does task manager use in lieu? A whip, the long arm, right? Okay, task manager's job is that it abhors chaos. We know cats are associated with chaos and is obsessed with order. What do we know about Carol? We know that Carol is order obsessed. She has shaken up the police department. It's her most visible act of order obsession is, no, the cops aren't the way I want them to be. But she's also shaken up jobs all over town. I need to circle back around and do a comprehensive look at all the jobs. That one's a little trickier in the text dump. If people want to help me out with the job shakeup, I would love to have help in the comment section on that one. Let's talk about the Cattheimers. So the Cattheimers, Catti does work for the Holiday family. Catti with a Y does work for the Holiday family from time to time. We know that Noelle and Catti are friends. This is to say that the Holidays and the Cattheimers are kind of family friends the same way that the Dreamers and the Holidays were, at least before they drifted apart here. And it appears that maybe the Cattheimer Holiday relationships actually gone on longer here. So when we see the cats working for the task manager, I kind of think that this is a bit analogous to, Catti babysitting for Carol, because, that is her job, and, Catti was actually a strict babysitter, so you could even kind of look at, task manager as analogizing a little bit to Catti, right? But the Cattheimers themselves, they are chaos cats. Let's not kid ourselves on this. They have a chaotic lifestyle. Catti with the Y is the most orderly one. So it makes sense that the Holidays would actually have the closest relationship with them. Mom and Dad are a bit raucous, aren't they? They go to the diner, they're holding the signs, they're always making a little bit of a disturbance. Carol wouldn't love that. Catti with a Y is a bit much, but it is more like kind of catty and standoffish, and actually in this sense, temperamentally, probably the closest fit for Carol, probably the easiest one for her to get along with, and for Rudy to get along with too. I mean, Catti with an I is probably a tricky one, and also is a little bit younger as well. But the Cattheimer's house, it is, as they call it, a bit of a cat sty. And there is various cat-themed junk piled up inside of the house. Makes you actually kind of wonder if like Alphys gets cat stuff from the Cattenheimers, or if Alphys and the Cattenheimers have some sort of connection. I wasn't able to find anything, but it does certainly make you wonder. Then we need to talk about the friends and the dark. We're getting close to the end here. Thank Lord, we are getting so close. So let's circle back to Chapter 3 and that very long cutscene. Because I've had people mention, man, that cutscene's very long. It's so long that they even put the sofa thing and they kind of let you skip all of this. But here's why that cutscene's here. It's to really set us up with the friend and the dark. So again, keep in your mind as we're going through this, Alphys sitting at home at night eating ramen by herself, and then this happens. As long as there's light. You see, when it gets dark, things become more indistinct. And when the light runs out, of course, your mind can't make anything of nothing. So it makes something of nothing would be the implication there. And that perhaps is what these friends are. It is the something out of nothing that our mind makes. You can start to see things again and then feel them. This is from the Spampton sweepstakes. This, you could certainly argue, is foreshadowing the scene. But this draws a very, very clear connection between chair, thing that you can't make out entirely. Here comes the friend. Now we have the dog burglars, attacked by something merciless in the shadows. Just bringing it back around. And then, I can't believe I had to watch this again. But I had to watch this again. My brain rotted out partially because of it. And I'm still recovering. It might take a day or two. But I watched the Spampton sweepstakes video thing again. And the guy who plays Spampton gets attacked by a mic. So we actually have had this Mike Spampton thing really kind of hit over our head a couple of times. But that, admittedly, was so weird and disjointed and deconstruction. It's glorious, and lovely. I love it. But so strange. And I need to see it once every 2 years. But so good. Very, very good. I mean, really, it is good. It's just a lot. So to bring it all home here, there's a friend in hometown coming out at night. The friend is following Kris, and Kris has been going to the Dark World since before Chapter 1, based off of that save file that we overwrite. The friend follows them to almost every Dark World that they go to. So supposing that they've ever been to more than one Dark World since the summoning ceremony, this pursuit's been going on for some time now, which is part of where Kris has got all this resentment from. The origin of that friend chasing Kris around dates back to Catti and the summoning ceremony. Catti is, just in case you need a little more connection here, nobly pink. You get the pink and the yellow eyes there. She's the pink outlier of her otherwise purple-pink family. Kris was interested in summoning a demon, was looking up demon summoning online. And then Kris and Catti did the demon summoning ceremony. And it was probably Catti's idea, since we know Catti's so heavy and all of the Cattenheimers are so heavy in all things cat. It was probably Catti's idea to summon a cat sort of demon. But midway through this ceremony, Catti deep six it and leaves Kris by themselves to face whatever it is that happens at the end of this demon summoning ceremony. And I believe that this demon is the friend that is currently haunting hometown. And this is why Catti feels very guilty about this. Even though Catti tries to play it cool and like nothing matters at all, this is one point of guilt that Catti flails over. And Kris, for Kris's part, normally is a bit of an ice human, not really showing much emotion. But the resentment here is so palpable that other peers of Kris and Catti comment on the dynamic, and obviously Catti still brings it up, and Kris, for their part, does nothing to assuage any of this guilt, which can help you kind of conclude the problem still exists to this day with Kris. And that's where I think Carol fits into this. I think Carol, with all of her knowledge about hometown, with the thematics between task manager and task, and the fact that she has total informational awareness by controlling the mayor's office and the police station, and there's no internet right now. We have some sort of connection to the internet and cats, so maybe this is Carol's attempt to control the cats, prevent them from leaving town, is part of what the barrier strategy is here. The internet outage is yet another form of a barrier to keep the cats from getting out since they're so internet based. Who knows? But Carol is in the loop about this. The smoking gun on this is the dog burglars sitting in the jail of the police department that she is micromanaging. They weren't arrested by Carol. They ran into Undyne's arms. They know what Mayor Holiday looks like. Of course they know what Mayor Holiday looks like. It's the mayor. And they were trying to rob her house. So like you would know if you were caught by the person whose house you were trying to rob. You wouldn't say it obliquely like this. And you certainly wouldn't say, and I quote, something merciless. Carol Holiday's a harsh mayor. Calling her something is rough. That would be someone merciless. This is a something merciless. Carol Holiday knows about this now that the dog burglars are hanging out in that jail cell there. So all of this sums up together to say, between the thematics in Cyber City and the evidence we have in hometown, we have a friend in hometown. There is a friend inside. I hope you liked this video. I know this one was a long one. This might actually end up clocking in to be my longest one. If you liked the video, like and subscribe. Please make sure to leave comments. Namely, if you've got stuff to kind of push the conversation along, or you got other topics you want to talk about around Deltarune, that is how wheels get rolling around here. And we have some good conversations in the comment thread. So hopefully you'll join in. Thanks for watching. Go and listen to Husker Du's Zen Arcade.